How did you get started in this business?
Well, I guess, I use a wheelchair, so I think that early on I did a lot of stuff with the Jerry Lewis sponsored dystrophy telethons as a kid growing up in Miami, and I saw the cameras and everything and was always more interested being behind the camera than in front. And then just fascinated with storytelling in general. Went to film school at the University of Central Florida, and then was on my way. Did a short that won an Emmy, and then went on to my first feature, and knew that I had to move to California because it is the heart of Hollywood. I've always loved Hollywood and movies and the whole business. So I came out here in '98, and I've been working ever since.
When you went to film school, was there any discussion about accessibility and diversity and inclusion in the film industry at all? Was that ever covered in any of the curriculum?
Well, actually, I was sort of trailblazing then, because the first thing my professor said when I was trying to get into the film program that had been opened up there was, the percentage of women that are directing, and you know what your odds are, and you use the wheelchairs, you think it's going to be even easier? And I said, well, in other words, screw you, I'm doing it anyway, so this is my passion. And he was just testing me. He was basically telling me the truth, that it's going to be hard. And in fact, a lot of times in like the RTV program, I actually double majored in radio, television, and then also in film. And in the RTV program, the control booth wasn't accessible, so they had to put in a ramp so that I could do it. And so I guess it was easier for the people that followed me, but a lot of times, I was aware of the challenges, but even today, women directors are far and few between. We have some great examples, but it's a long challenges along the way.
During those times, getting started, getting used to the industry, was there anything that deterred you in any way, or made you feel like this is something I might not want to do, or were you just wanted to power through because that was your passion and that was
Yeah, pretty much. I'm pretty stubborn, and I grew up with my parents telling me that there was no such word as can't. And when
it?
someone would say, like, I was a drummer as a kid, and they were like, "Oh, you can't be a drummer," I'm like, "Why not?" And they're like, "Yeah, why not?" And so I was a drummer in school, and then I was passionate about this business, so nothing was going to stop me. The professor being challenging me, he was just doing it to see if I had, the strength to kind of push through. And when I did, immediately, when I told him, too bad I'm doing it anyways, he said, great, here you go. Here's your challenge, you're in, kind of a thing. And so I've had great mentors along the way that have been very supportive
Hmm.
and helpful. And one of my goals early on was becoming a member of the Directors Guild. And seeing how that's where the top directors were, and directing is what I wanted to do, and I had successes on the short films, and I learned from them and kept moving forward to the first feature, and I knew that I wasn't going to follow the same path as my peers. In film school, they would often get a job as a PA and work their way up. I knew I couldn't do that because I wasn't going to be sweeping up, and stuff like that. So I did it the other way. I knew if I controlled the material, the screenplays, that then it would be mine and I could hire myself if no one
Hmm.
else was going to hire me. So, I started writing and also writing with other good writer friends and getting material that then I could develop and hire myself. And so that's what I've done.
But what was it in particular that piqued your interest in the entertainment industry? Was it a specific movie, a specific director, a specific style?
A lot of people will say, the Star Wars came out, it's not that more guys. But that's not really me. For me, it was movies like Rocky II which had a happy, ending. And it was just, I remember seeing it in a theater in Miami as a kid, and it was sold out, and the audience was jumping up and down. They wouldn't even sit in their seats. They were so excited. And the other movie that had the same effect for a different reason was Jaws when it came out. I mean, I was
Hmm.
probably too young to see it, but it was scary, and people were, going nuts. And I was like, I want to affect people like that. I want to make people laugh or cry or jump out of their seats. And so that was, you know, the power of the media. The power the media has to entertain was really kind of in my DNA. And that's how CinemAbility came about. I started thinking, wait a minute, all these films that I love, I don't see myself anywhere. I don't see anyone in a wheelchair unless it's some pitiful character or it's about that. And that was like, that's kind of interesting.
Do you think that lack of representation is just from writers and directors not knowing how to write someone if they're not like them, or is it because they still feel that it's taboo to put someone with any sort of disability in the forefront of a movie?
I think it's both. I think that it's also kind of what they're used to because of what we've all been fed. We've been fed this diet of one representation after another that we just accept.
Mm.
So when I started looking back at the history of, because our film covers from the silent era to today, and we bit off quite a bit, and I assumed that it would show that as society became more enlightened about stereotypes and bad representations, that they would no longer exist, but I was wrong because it was just a couple of years ago that Me Before You came out. I don't know if you remember that movie.
Mm.
Hopefully not too many people saw it, but it was a horrible representation in the book and everything. It was horrible, and people were like eating it up. But the point is, they have a character who becomes disabled, now uses a wheelchair, but so since physically he isn't as capable as he was before, his life is worthless, and he wants to kill himself, even though he's rich and is good looking and has a girlfriend. None of that matters because the only thing that matters is the physical limitations. And that's a very bad message to be telling today. It's so outdated,
Hmm.
but $1 Million Baby, same story, pretty much ends up winning, being nominated for Academy Award. So we have this acceptance that, oh my God, if something happened to me, that would be horrible. And yet, every now and then there'll be a film like Ray where you show someone who was fighting more discrimination, racial discrimination and being blind in a time period that he excelled because he was talented and a go-getter. And the only reason we see positive representations is that it's a true story. So when it's fictional, we fall back to these tropes that are damaging. To say a person, a football player, gets injured in a Friday night high school game, and what is he going to think when he's recovering when that's all he's seen? Or the cheerleader that falls off the pyramid and is now going to use a wheelchair, or the person who comes down with MS later in life. There's only 5 seconds between someone who's able-bodied and someone who has a disability. You
Hmm.
step off the curb incorrectly and join the club. But because nobody wants to think about that, they don't want to see it. Well, what that means is that when you're not in the picture at all, many films, I started calling it the gold test to see if there was anyone at all in the motion picture that had any sort of disability in the background, in a crowd scene, walking with a cane or whatever. And 9 times out of 10, there's nobody. And what that does is when that person with a cane or blind or with a hearing issue goes to get a job, that employer isn't accustomed to seeing them as a clerk or a lawyer or whatever. So it really affects society's inclusion, people who are different. But, our film covers more than just disability. It covers people who are different in a multitude of ways.
When you started putting this documentary together, what were some of the hurdles that you had to overcome to get it made and get it out?
Um, well, I think the biggest one is one that we're facing right now is that people hear the word documentary and they're like, yeah, it's going to be boring. They hear the word documentary and disability and they think, oh my gosh, it's going to be about some kid who has some rare disease. It's going to be depressing, you know. Um, it's not like that. We made an
Mhm.
entertaining film, which is basically a clip show that shows your favorite film and TV shows, and we did it with a lot of humor. Peter Farrelly of the Farrelly Brothers said, we get more laughs than some of his movies. And I actually counted them. We get like 9 because my point was to entertain. Yeah,
Mhm.
it was educational and it talks about something that hadn't been discussed before, and so people. But that's part of the fun because when you leave the movie, a couple things happen. There's a bunch of movies you saw that maybe you hadn't seen in a while or you hadn't seen at all, and you're like, oh, I want to see that again. So it makes you want to, see these other pictures, but it also makes you want to talk. Makes you want to talk to your friends because you're like, man, I never thought about that. Where a lot of movies, you go to and afterwards you're like, let's get a burger and then it's over. Because there's no real substance, no depth. So this one, you have a good time. It's funny. And the celebrities that we got are amazing. They really opened up in a way that I didn't even expect. I would hope for, but I didn't know they would be so giving not only of their time but of their their passion and their thoughts on the subject matter and things that people wouldn't expect.
Did you find that most of them had a better understanding of the lack of representation, having played someone with a disability in the film, or were they, in the process of you making this documentary, were they learning more and were they becoming more aware of the issue in Hollywood?
I think a little bit of both. I mean, some people like Ben Affleck had a very solid understanding because he has a friend who uses a wheelchair that he had met along the way. And, I didn't know that when I first went to interview him. I was interviewing because he had done Daredevil, and
Hmm.
stuff like that. But he was like on point on everything. He was fantastic. There's other people who hadn't thought about certain things. And when I brought up certain questions like, have you ever seen anyone behind the scenes with a disability working in the industry? And they would think and they'd be like, man, I've been in the business for 20 years or 30 years or whatever. And I can't, and I don't know why that is. Bo Bridges added that, when he first started, he added to his contracts that they would have someone of ethnic diversity to try to help, uh, cross that hurdle. And he goes, now that you mentioned this, I think I should add it to the next thing I do also about someone with a disability because if you look nationally on any job, not just in the industry, in the film industry, but any job, employment rates for disabled people who are capable and who want to work. I mean, obviously there's some people who might not be in the position where they're looking for work, but those that are able and want to and capable aren't getting the opportunities because people have misconceptions of what they're capable of. They think, even for the actors that we interviewed, they're like, oh, well, it's easier for them to hire a guy and throw him in a wheelchair than to worry about, will they be able to accommodate my needs?
Hmm.
And will that cost more money or will it cost more time? Because on a film set, time is money and you got to just move. So because I'm a filmmaker first, and this is really my first documentary, I'm more of a narrative storyteller. I understood all those issues. And it's funny, when you start bringing a film out like this, a lot of people are like, oh, it's funny, I got on posters, Ben Affleck, Jamie Foxx, they got people playing the deal, people not actors. We cover all these issues, but we do it in I love Hollywood, I love business, and I think it's most important that we're represented first, and that there's certain economic issues that you can't sometimes, you have to have that lead star to get the money. So money is a big hurdle when making any project. So we cover everything in a very balanced way without really putting our own yeah, we have our own opinions, but we allow the audience to form their own. It's
Hmm.
funny how people who haven't even seen the film yet are sort of jumping to conclusions before they watch it. I'm like, I don't know if that's good or bad, but take a look before you know what it's about, because we pretty much cover the whole story.
For those people that are looking to find the film and to watch it, where can they find it? Can they find it on video on demand, on
It
Amazon? Where can they find
it's
it?
it's going to be everywhere October 5th, but you can pre-order right now. I think it's starting on iTunes, and it'll be on Amazon, iTunes pre-orders. I think they're starting today or tomorrow, but October 5th, it's available everywhere, and it'll also be coming out on DVD and Blu-ray and the whole nine yards.
All right, Jane. Thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me today. I really appreciate it. When this came across my desk earlier this week, I was like, I've got to talk to her about this. This is I
Well,
can't pass
thank
this
you.
up.
Well, thank you. I
I'm
appreciate it.
partially deaf, so representation for me is always kind of deaf is like seems to be the thing everyone wants to make fun of, and
Yeah.
it's always the butt of the joke. So for
All
me,
right.
it's
Well,
kind of difficult.
when I interviewed Marlee Matlin about her Academy Award win, she was very open about the following year when she spoke. A lot of the community got very angry with her, and how she felt about that and why that happened, and it's very interesting that people, sometimes uh, do not get the full picture until they walk in someone else's shoes. But I think you'll enjoy it. We have some really interesting things that, and we included, because we're about inclusion, we included everybody. We included, as much as we could in the 90 minutes that we had.
Well, thanks again so much. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me for you coming on, and I wish you all the best. And when you come down to Florida, come see me, and you can come into the studio and you do a proper interview.
Awesome. I look forward to it. Well, I got to support fellow Floridians, man. I really appreciate you talking to us today, and hopefully everybody will watch CinemAbility. You can go to CinemAbility.com or iTunes or Amazon or anywhere. Let's get it and tell your friends, because I think you'll really enjoy it.